So welcome everyone. For this video, I decided I was going to try something just a little bit different, and I'm going to show the entire process start to finish. And don't worry, I'm not going to make you sit through 8 hours worth of video footage. Instead, I have it all sped up. So for this project, I am making a bowl, and this is something I've been thinking about for 12 years now. It was one of those I kind of got caught in the trap of I don't have the perfect piece of wood, and so that was keeping me from basically making that. I knew the trap existed. I've told others to try to avoid it, and I fell into it myself. So kind of like long story short, 12 years ago, I stumbled across the blog of David Fisher. He was on there, explaining how to make a bowl out of, a carved bowl out of green wood. And it was something I really wanted to try. And I set out looking for a bit of a log to turn into a bowl. Couldn't find it, put it on the back burner. And every so often I'd try to revisit it and, look for another piece of wood that would work. And I always kept coming up short. At any rate, he had put out an article in Fine Woodworking magazine, and in that he was talking about how to carve a bowl out of a piece of 8-quarter lumber. And I read that and kicked myself because I could have been doing this the entire time. I got too caught up in the, I need to do this the exact way that it was presented, and less of, trying to figure out how to make it work with the materials that were available to me. So, for this first part of the video, I am basically, following his article the best I can. And as I went through this, there was a lot of stuff. It was like, I realized, I don't really need to do this. But since I don't know how to carve a bowl at all, I decided I should probably stick pretty close to what he had written. And to start that off, I need a piece of material to whatever. I don't remember what the dimensions were now. So I set about flattening one face with some hand planes, and then I could run it through my thickness planer, get it to thickness, and then through the table saw to get it to 6 inches. And now I'm just working on doing all the layout. And I was using a wooden mallet there. This is going to get a curved top on it. That mallet just ended up being the right kind of curve, made it easy to trace. And so I'm going to start carving on this bowl. And the first step was rounding over the top. So just scrub planing and then a jointer to get that round. And admittedly, I am going kind of overboard on this. This is one of those things of I want to make sure I am kind of doing everything a little extra, and then I can kind of figure out where the limits are and of what do I need to do, what do I not need to do, and basically I just don't want any mistakes for why this went awry. So you saw me with the joiner, and now I picked up a small block plane, and I'm using that basically to get kind of the little spots. The joiner was kind of skating over some spots, and so I could use the block plane there to get into the nooks and crannies a little bit more and get the shape that I was after. So now I'm coming back just with a standard smoothing plane, just to kind of get everything in the same plane a little bit better. And now it's time for some more layout. And once all this layout is done, I can start carving. And that's an early project. That was a like a beam compass that I made, uh, nice and long to do this. And what that was basically laying out where the ends of the bowl are going to be, and then I can come in with a regular compass, which I just didn't have one, so that is just a pencil taped to a pair of dividers. And then I got a flexible ruler in here, and I can just kind of trace my lines. I need to do some round out, and that's what that piece of tape was, just to give myself a guide more so than anything. So now it is time to start carving, and I'm probably gonna dip out here on the narration for a little bit. And but before I do that, I can just explain a little bit about what's going on. I have got a curved gouge there, a bent gouge, and I am just slowly working across the grain to dig myself a trench, and then I can come in kind of with the grain and then carve down to the bottom of that trench, and just kind of come in from both sides, flip around, and just work back and forth like that until I get to depth, to the bottom. And it's one of those things where I'm kind of working real slow here and methodically, just so I don't overshoot anything. And it's about, dig a trench and then scoop down towards it and rinse and repeat. And because I don't think I mentioned it, I'm using I'm carving this all out of a piece of cypress. And I thought it was going to be a little bit easier to carve because it was soft, and I was wrong on that. I had a lot of problems when it came to the ends of the bowl. After, or I guess I should say more of like the edges of the rim when you're getting more into ingrain. That's when I start having a problem. But in the meantime, man, this stuff worked pretty well going this way. The problem I was having with that end grain was it was crushing, and I'll talk a little more about that when we get farther along in this project. But right now it's just all about making big old chips. And this is about the time where using that cypress kind of bit me. Um, as I was getting that bowl deeper and deeper, the edge of the trough, I guess, um, went from kind of a gentle slope to more vertical, and you're getting into more ingrain that way. And I was starting to get a little bit of crushing and a little bit of tear out with the fibers, and resharpening the gouge, trying different gouges. I think I ended up trying some water mixed with denatured alcohol. Usually that works pretty well. And there was just like one little spot I could not get it to work. And I really just wasn't willing to changing the bevel angle on the gouge to try to get a little bit lower angle, and maybe that would have sliced through a little bit better. It is what it is. And, this was just me now coming in. I'm just trying to get the final shape, and I'm going to, that's a compass plane I got, Crown Tools, I believe, on Etsy. And it's a real nice hand plane. You should check them out. And I'm just using that to kind of get in here and just help smooth some stuff out. And I actually ended up taking it a little too far with the smoothing, and I came back and put some more gouge marks in it a little bit later. But this was all just an experiment and learning along the way, and how smooth or how faceted the inside of that trough is I think it's probably just a matter of personal preference. I scored this nice little set of Pattern Maker planes, and they've been sitting around, and I really just want to try using them for this. And then what I flashed on the screen, that was a hand plane I made out of a brass pipe. And one of the reasons I had made that was specifically because I had this project in mind and I wanted to give it a shot. And what I have learned is that plane looks cool. It does not work that well. It's a little hard to get the iron and wedge set in there. I think I don't know. It needs a little more distance, I think, between the I don't know why. It's being weird, and I can't quite figure that one out. So now, back with the gouge, trying to get that ingrain right there cleaned up, get rid of all that tear out, and I get probably 90% of it out. There's still just a little bit left that I just wasn't able to get, but in the end, it didn't really matter. And one thing, make sure you're clearing away your chips. That's especially important with the softer wood, because if they get trapped underneath the board, then they can leave indentations and stuff like that. So, trying to keep a somewhat clean workbench. And I did not like where I was at with it. I felt it was too big, so I started over and made a slightly smaller bowl. And right now, so what you see me doing, um, that's grain filler, and it's a water-based grain filler. It takes some time to dry. I still had the outside to still work on, so what I decided to do was apply the grain filler, and I'm doing that. Cypress doesn't really need it, but what I'm doing it for is to help try to seal up the wood. The finish that I'm going to do on it needs to have a sealed surface. The other reason I'm doing it is to see if I can't fill a little bit of that lingering tear out that I had. And I figured it was a good time to do that now. I was going to need a few coats, so I started it now so that it could be drying while I am working on the outside of the bowl. And so now I'm over at the bandsaw, and I am cutting away the excess to give it the general shape that I'm going out after. And now I can just use some regular hand planes for this. A lot of this work was done with a block plane that I had made, and I think that one there is another plane I made a video or two back. It was a New York City miter plane. But yeah, I just kind of went at this with the 16th century replica block plane that I made, and then that New York City miter plane that I have, and a spoke shave. I did not make a spoke shave. I like to. That's on my list to do. It might happen later this year. And I think I need a compass plane to help with the outside curves. So now I have a piece of non-woven pad, and I'm just giving that a light sanding, that grain filler, and then I'm coming back and applying another coat. And I don't think I said it, but it's Aqua Coat, I believe, is the product that I'm using here. Water-based clear grain filler, and it's doing exactly what I wanted to do. It's helping to fill up some of that tear out, and help seal up the surface, which I'm going to need for the finish treatment that I'm going to do. And now to shape the rest of that bowl, it's off to a spoke, not a spoke shave. That's a draw knife. It's a bevel up draw knife. I have a bevel down draw knife, just a traditional draw knife. It is covered in spray paint, and there might be a crack in it. I don't know. It's on a list to try to restore, but it's another one of those million projects that we all have. I'll get to it someday. But the draw knife is working pretty well here. Just it's really taking off a lot of material quickly. Not quite as fast as if you're working in green lumber, but it really did the trick. So now it's on to, I got the outside shaped pretty well. And now it's on to the, I guess the handles is what you would call it. And so I just got a piece of scrap wood. I have that up against my bench and a stop. And I'm using that as a one, so I don't send my gouge into my stop. And then two, I'm kind of using it a little bit like a depth stop. And whenever I hit that piece of wood, then I am good. And I have a little bit of a crack that is opening up. And, I was carving this over a couple days on and off. I think all in total, I have about 8 hours into this project. But, that's one of those things when you remove a lot of material, even with kiln dried lumber that has been acclimated to your shop, the inside is going to be just a little bit wetter than the outside. So, exposing the end grain and, a crack that was there started opening up a little bit. So I'm going to leave that and we'll come back to it later after I finish this other side. And what you saw me spray there was some denatured alcohol and a little bit of water. I was getting some more tear out. And I was trying to use that to help soften the fibers and kind of get past that without crushing more fibers. And I didn't include this, but I do go back and sharpen up my gouges periodically throughout this process, trying to reduce that tear out as much as possible. All right, so now it's on to some sanding. The end grain there, I had not. I still had the bandsaw marks, so that's what I'm taking care of there. And then I'm finishing up with some more aqua coat. That should be the last coat there. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the outsides too, on the underside of what the handles are. And I think everything ended up getting about 3 coats. And again, I need to seal this and then try to fill up some of that tear out. And now I'm going to try work on repairing that crack, at least stabilizing it. If it's going to be cracked, it's going to be cracked. It's not a big deal. So breaking out the epoxy, and I had some veneer laying around, and that the crack on the outside, I had enough, or right on the edge, I could get it open enough to get a piece of veneer in there to help stabilize that crack, and then working some epoxy down to that crack that's a little bit lower down there. And I was viewing this entire thing as an experiment, and if there was cracks, there was cracks. I wasn't going to fret too much about it. And then I came back to it, get all that trimmed up, and I ended up finding more cracks later. It's just the way this was. I probably should have cut about 3 inches off the edge of that board, but I didn't. That's all I really had, so not a big deal. We're gonna just deal with what we had. We're just basically gonna deal with it. That's just how that's going to be. And then on to some more aqua coat. Just trying to get all of that ingrain sealed up and fill up all of the little bits of tear out. And then I'm doing some sanding on that just so the next treatment will stick appropriately. Knock down some of the facets, stuff like that. I did decide to sand the outsides. I just wanted a smoother appearance, and certainly you could leave all the hand plane marks, but I just wanted a little bit smoother appearance on this. So I have taken it over now. This is I have a granite plate, and I'm just using that to help get everything level. The one thing you might have noticed, the first bowl blank that I was working on had a curved top. I decided I didn't want a curved top after I was working on the second one, and so I'm just using I wanted a flat top on it instead. And just a stylistic choice, really. And that's I think that's 120 paper stuck down to that plate, and I'm just using that basically to get the bottom and the top perfectly flat, and checking it periodically to make sure that it is, when the bowl is sitting flat, it's visually, like, the top and the bottom are visually parallel to one another, because if it looks straight, it is straight, as Jimmy DeResta would say. And so after all that cleaning, after all the sanding, it's got to be cleaned. And now it's time for the finish. So I am applying a coat of milk paint here, and this is going to be a base coat for the treatment that's coming next. The next bit up, I'll be applying some metal leaf. And I had read that if you apply a red color underneath the metal leaf, it can improve the appearance of that. And I don't know if I would do that again. It worked for sure. I ended up with some brush strokes in the paint that showed through, so I'm not quite sure I would necessarily do that again, but I think it worked. And so that's just milk paint. It's a powder that gets mixed in water, and it's great stuff. I actually really like working with milk paint. But I want to make sure now it's fully cleaned, and I'm just going at it with a little bit of a heat gun at a very low heat, just to kind of help evaporate the alcohol that was in there. And now it's time for some shellac. That was mostly just to seal up that surface. And I don't know if I needed to do this again. That was just an experiment. And now it's time to apply the metal leaf. And I had a lot of trouble with this. I think I put too much glue on. I think that was one problem. I don't know if I was necessarily using the best materials. I just went down to the local Michael's and got what was in stock. But I think I used a little too much glue and probably had the wrong brush. I definitely got some brush strokes in all of this, but it is what it is. Not a big deal. First time applying it. And now time to apply the metal leaf. I got some copper. I think I might have messed this up. I think I did the burnishing pretty much immediately, and I don't think I should have done that. I probably should have waited a little while before I did the burnishing. And again, I think I might have been using the wrong brush from this. But you know what? It all works out in the end. So spoilers, it all works out. And so for the inside of that bowl, I'm trying a slightly different kind of metal leaf. It's copper and imitation gold, and there's some other, I don't know what all it was, but it came in these little tiny flakes, and I don't I don't necessarily, I don't know. I kind of liked it and I kind of don't, and um it works, but it wasn't, I don't know necessarily what I thought it was going to be. It worked. I'm not complaining at this point, but um, again, this was one of those like, this is all an experiment. I've been thinking about this, like I said, for 12 years, and this was mostly just a. I knew this first one, it could, it might not turn out, and so let me just throw every idea I had at it, whether that's good or bad, and we'll just see what the results are, and I can use that to help formulate a plan for future ones I might make. And this is about, I think, about a week later. I was having, like I said, a lot of problems with the gold leaf. It was not, the surface was real waxy after I was finished, kind of tacky. It was like that the glue that I used hadn't dried or something. I don't really know, and I could not find anybody else who had that same problem. Uh, and I was like, and I ended up scraping off everything I had done once and starting over. So this was actually what you're seeing here is the second attempt at applying all the metal leaf, and it that what I was applying in that last step was some water-based polyurethane. And after about 3 or 4 coats, that seemed to fix the problem that I was having. So it sealed up the surface. And I don't, I know they make metal leaf sealer. Michaels didn't, at least mine didn't carry any. And the company that it looks like it made the glue and the metal leaf didn't make any either. At least I could find it on their website. So I figured this was like, well, it's kind of already not working out. So we'll just can't hurt to throw any polyurethane on it. So anyway, polyurethaned it, and now it is off to doing some sanding. I want to get all of the extra paint off. I want to get all of that extra metal leaf and glue and polyurethane off the outside of that surface. And really the easiest way I felt to do this right now at this step was to do the sanding. I didn't want to risk getting any tear out if I went to a hand plane. This surface is rather curved. You kind of have the grain diving in both directions if you're not real careful. And so sanding's really just the easiest way to do this and achieve the look I am after. So now on the bottom, I'm going to leave the bottom clear, paint free. So I've applied some shellac to that just to help keep the milk paint from soaking into the grain down there. And what I'm applying right now is some crackle finish on it. And I've used crackle finish before. I like the effect. Usually the way that I've done it is you apply a coat of paint first, you apply the crackle, and then you apply a second coat of paint over the top of it. And I've never just applied the crackle to bare wood. And again, this is one of those, let's experiment and see what happens. And I can come back in with my paint. I am trying my hardest to stay off of the metal leaf and stay off of the bottom. It just means there's less cleanup for me to do later. But like I said, I got a couple coats of shellac on the bottom just to help protect it, and I'll do some cleanup on that after all the paint is dried. And now I can come in and paint the tops too. So started with the outside, I can paint the top as well. And I think I ended up doing maybe two coats, maybe 3 coats. I think it was just 2. I don't believe that I don't think I recorded every coat I did. And now I'm going to add a chamfer. I wanted a chamfer that didn't have any paint on it, and the easiest way to do that was do it after painted. So a little bit of hand plane work and some sandpaper, and I can call this one done. So, and here is the finished piece. I'm actually, when I first got it done, I wasn't super thrilled with how it looked. But now that I've sat with it for a little while, I've gotten some distance from that project. I'm pretty happy with it. It's something that I definitely will be exploring again in the future. I know some things I want to do differently. I know there's some things I want to do the same way. So overall, I'm happy with it. And thank you for tuning in to this one. It was a rather long one. If you made it to the end, I truly appreciate it. If you want to see more of my work, click around, check out some of the other videos I have, or I have a link in the description. It takes you to my website. You can find a portfolio there. So fair warning, I do make and sell hand tools, so that is there as well. So at any rate, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.